I locked eyes with my deceitful partner amid the family intervention, where whispered accusations clashed with the forbidden pull between us, and every heartbeat screamed betrayal. In that charged moment, as his lies set the stage for a ruthless corporate takeover, my searing vengeance ignited, a promise of retribution waiting to shatter everything we once believed in. Chapter 1: Gathering Storm. The day dawned with a promising glow as warm sunlight filtered through the ancient oak trees that bordered the family estate. The sprawling garden, meticulously tended over the years, echoed with familiar laughter and murmurs of welcome. Amid the festive chatter, Mira stood at the threshold of the old veranda, her gaze scanning the horizon with a mixture of anticipation and controlled vigilance. An accomplished businesswoman known for her unyielding tenacity and sharp wit, she carried an air of confidence that made her both admired and envied. Today, though, beneath the surface of the joyful reunion, glimmered undercurrents of unresolved tension. Mira's homecoming was not merely a return to familiar faces. It was an elaborate stage where family bonds intertwined with the relentless demands of her corporate world. Her partner in both love and business, Adrian, navigated the gathering with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to charming any crowd. His smile was disarming, his conversation sprinkled with flirtatious innuendo, and sly remarks that hinted at deeper, more ambiguous dealings. Together, they projected an image of unity, but those who had known them longer than a few years sensed that beneath the synchronized facade lay secrets yet to be fully revealed. As relatives milled about in the spacious drawing room festooned with heirlooms and nostalgic trinkets, Mira found herself caught in moments of bittersweet introspection. The laughter and the warmly familiar hugs reminded her of childhood simplicity. Yet every cordial smile carried a weight, an unspoken reminder of all that had been sacrificed on the altar of ambition. A close cousin, Elena, a perceptive woman with a keen sense for family dynamics, took a moment to corner Mira by the framed photographs of generations past. Elena's eyes, bright with both affection and caution, searched Mira's face. "Your business ventures have grown quite notably since you last visited," Elena remarked softly, her tone gentle yet probing. "But sometimes I wonder if all that glitters isn't a bit too polished for what should be more genuine, don't you think?" Mira's smile faltered for only an instant, a fleeting shadow that vanished as she regained her composure. With an even tone, she replied, "Growth requires evolution, Elena, and sometimes polished gold is what it takes to market the truth as effectively as it conceals it." The cryptic nature of her words was lost on many, but not on those who looked upon her with discerning eyes. The conversation, though brief, rippled with insinuation, and the unasked question of whether the measures taken in her professional life might be stretching the boundaries of trust and integrity. Across the room, Adrian's laughter registered like a melody as he mingled with distant relatives over appetizers. His presence was magnetic, and his every gesture was designed to reinforce the vision of a partnership built on mutual respect and love. Yet, in the quiet backstage of his mind, subtle memories of contracts and clandestine meetings collided with the tender pulses of attraction. In a moment of seclusion on the marble balcony, where the festive echoes dimmed to a soft murmur, Adrian's gaze locked onto Mira's from across the terrace. The distance between them blurred into insignificance, as their eyes communicated a wealth of unspoken promises and personal regrets. Under the cooling evening skies, the couple retreated to a secluded corner of the garden, where silvered moonlight caught every nuance of their intertwined breaths. In the gentle embrace away from family adulation, tensions gave way to vulnerability. It was here that the masquerade of perfect unity peeled away, revealing the raw edges of their shared past. Adrian's hand, warm against Mira's cheek, spoke a language that transcended words. "We navigate treacherous waters every day," he murmured, his voice husky with both pride and remorse. "Sometimes I wonder if the storms we summon ourselves might eventually consume us." Mira's pulse danced at his words, sprinkled with the bittersweet taste of both past allegiance and a creeping sense of betrayal. She leaned into his touch as if searching for reassurance, yet another part of her remained on constant alert. The intimacy of their shared moment was a fragile truce between two hearts bound by necessity, passion, and a history riddled with half-truths. With that quiet admission hanging in the cool air between them, it was as though the storm clouds gathering on the corporate battlefield were now visible in the shimmering reflection of the moon. Returning to the family circle, the conversation took on an air of cautious optimism. An uncle recounted mischievous childhood antics, while a niece chimed in about modern adventures, each tale weaving through the tapestry of generational lore. But as the joyful narratives unfolded, subtle ripples of old resentments and buried grievances disrupted the harmony. A distant relative, ever the critic, casually remarked on the recent business moves that Mira had spearheaded. "It's impressive, really, to see how skyscrapers have risen on the foundations of so-called ethics," he said, the words floating through the crowd with an unmistakable undercurrent of accusation. His tone, while lighthearted, resonated with a hint of irony that suggested a deeper disapproval of the choices Mira had made. The remark, ambiguous yet charged, did not immediately mar the celebratory air. Rather, it lingered in the corners of conversations, awaiting its moment to evoke a stronger confrontation. Mira, feeling the weight of the eyes upon her, could only offer a smile that belied the turmoil swirling inside. It was a smile that said, "I'm prepared to face my critics." Yet it also carried the silent admission that not all secrets could be wrapped in layers of charm and eloquence. Later that evening, as shadows deepened and the clinking of glasses subsided to a gentle murmur, Mira found herself alone with Adrian in the quiet of the study, a room lined with polished wood and the ghosts of past achievements. The intimate lighting cast long, wavering shadows that danced on the walls as they spoke in hushed tones. "Every smile hides a fracture, every success the potential for collapse," Mira confessed, her voice trembling with a mix of resolve and sorrow. Her words hinted at recollections of past deceptions and betrayals, a mystery that both intrigued and alarmed Adrian. He responded with a suppressed sigh, the kind that spoke of a man burdened by the dual weights of love and ambition. "We have built our empire on delicate foundations, Mira. Perhaps we hoped that the relentless march of progress would wash away the imperfections that remain hidden, but tonight, with family watching and whispers swirling, the reasons behind our choices seemed sharper than ever." There, in that half-lit sanctuary away from prying eyes, their conversation shifted into a charged silence, before returning to passionate words that bridged the rift between them. A lingering, emotionally charged kiss ensued, a mingling of regret, passion, and a desperate hope that their union could surmount the warnings whispered during the day. That kiss, intense as it was, spoke of a bond that was both unbreakable and fatally fragile. It was a union forged in the heat of ambition and nurtured in the tender aftermath of passion, but its very beauty was undercut by the realization that deception lurked in the shadows of their joint ventures. As the night deepened, the gentle hum of familial contentment seeped through the estate's walls, whispering of reconciliations and unresolved rifts. Yet within Mira's heart, every smile and tender caress was now tinted with the sober understanding that the upcoming days might force her to choose between the sanctuary of familiar love and the brutal necessities of business warfare. With the taste of that charged kiss still lingering on her lips, she steeled herself for the inevitable confrontation that would blur the lines between personal loyalty and corporate ambition. The gathering, resplendent with its mix of nostalgia, skepticism, and a radiant glow of familial unity, had become the precursor to a far more complex storm. Each laugh, every exchanged glance, and even the seemingly poignant tales of yesteryears had overlapped into a narrative that was as intricate as the patterns in a tapestry. In every whispered word and every probing inquiry, the seeds of forthcoming betrayal had been sown. And in the heart of it all, Mira could already feel the subtle but incontrovertible entrance of a force that might threaten to unravel everything she had so painstakingly built, both in the boardroom and in the depths of her heart. As the family gathering waned and the last guest made their departure, Mira stood by the grand foyer, absorbing the night's ambivalence. The echo of laughter mingled with the remnants of uneasy conversations, painting a murky picture of the path that lay ahead. She glanced once more towards the study where she had shared that fateful kiss with Adrian, a moment that encapsulated both the passion and the discord of their shared journey. With a deep, resolute exhale, Mira vowed to herself that the calm before this gathering storm was merely the precursor to battles yet to be fought, where every secret and betrayal would eventually be forced into the light. In the witness of an unknowing moon, the family estate held its breath, and within its aged walls, a storm was truly gathering. A tempest that promised to upheave both personal bonds and the corporate world that Mira and Adrian had so meticulously constructed. Chapter 2: Fault Lines. The long, polished dining table had witnessed its share of laughter and gentle conversation over the years, but this evening it bore witness to something altogether different, an eruption of truths long suppressed. Elena sat stiff-backed in the high-backed chair, her eyes fixed on the patterned tablecloth, as if it could somehow absorb the shock of revelations that were about to slice through the veneer of her carefully maintained life. Around her, family members exchanged anxious glances. They had come together not merely as loved ones but as willing conspirators against a shared betrayal. At the head of the table sat her Aunt Marisol, whose once warm smile had tightened into a stern line of determination. "Elena," she began, her tone low and purposeful, "we can't keep pretending everything is as it should be. You deserve honesty, and so does our family." The soft timbre of her voice belied the gravity of the moment. Elena swallowed hard as her eyes darted from her aunt to her partner, Julian, who sat uncomfortably at the other end of the table, his expression an uneasy blend of contrition and defensiveness. Before Elena could react, Uncle Raphael, passionate and unafraid to use his blunt style of communication, interjected. "It's time we talked about these promises you made, about the business, for instance. How could you, or rather, how could we allow your promises of ethical partnership to be nothing but a facade while deals were being twisted behind closed doors?" His words resonated with the clatter of dropped silverware and the heavy silence that followed. The air buzzed with an electric charge of accusation and regret. Elena's mind raced. For weeks, small, disconcerting details had gnawed at her. Overlooked inconsistencies in meeting minutes, whispered hints during late-night phone calls, and a surprisingly cavalier attitude from Julian when it came to decisions that affected not just their personal lives, but the very integrity of the corporate empire they were building together. Tonight, these whispers were given voice, echoing around the room and shattering what little peace remained. Julian's eyes flickered with anxiety as he tried to muster a response. His well-practiced calm was breaking under the combined weight of familial discontent and his own mounting guilt. "Elena," he said, a hesitant note creeping into his tone, "I never intended for any of this to come to light in such a painful manner." His words, instead of soothing, seemed to inflame the situation further. Elena's heart hammered in her chest, blending hurt with a rising sensation of betrayal. In that moment, the warm glow of love that had once been reserved for Julian began to cool into something unfamiliar, an icy determination, spiked with vengefulness. Her voice, when it emerged, was quiet but tremulous with emotion. "How do I know any of these promises were ever meant to be kept, Julian? How do I know they weren't just investments of trust meant to cover your ambitions?" Uncle Raphael nodded bitterly. "It's not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It's about the integrity we prayed to preserve. Family values aren't just a relic of the past. They're meant to anchor us, to guide us when greed threatens to pull us under." Chapter 3, Takeover and Takedown. The boardroom was a silent arena of calculated moves and visible tension as Amelia strode in, with the quiet authority of someone who had weathered betrayal and was now determined to claim what was rightfully hers. The glossy mahogany table, once a symbol of her shared dreams with her partner, now stood as the battleground for the ultimate corporate counter-takeover. Every chair, every glance, every raised eyebrow seemed to hint at the underlying conspiracies that had seeped into every corner of her professional world, and whose roots ran deep in familial betrayals as well. As the meeting commenced, Amelia surveyed the room with piercing eyes, each face a mask of uncertainty in the wake of recent events. The partner she had trusted implicitly now sat across from her, his expression a mixture of defiance and dread. Over the past few weeks, evidence of his far-reaching deceit had piled up like an avalanche, and now, with every minute passing in that room, the full measure of his treachery was set to be revealed. Amelia began outlining a meticulously crafted plan, a counter-takeover not merely to wrest back control of the business, but to dismantle the entire network of lies and manipulation that had threatened to devastate everything she had built. Her voice, though calm, carried an undercurrent of steely determination. "We stand at a crossroads," she began, projecting her vision to the board members and stakeholders present. "This is not just about corporate strategy. It is about trust, betrayal, and the integrity of our legacy." As she spoke, each word was laced with both a professional command and the raw emotion of personal pain. She spoken of a new beginning where honesty was not brokered through manipulation and backdoor deals, but through transparent leadership and mutual respect. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, knowing that beneath her measured speech lay the promise of retribution. Amelia had spent sleepless nights poring over financial documents, heard whispers in corridors, and uncovered digital trails that tracked her partner's covert maneuvers. In this moment, her counter-takeover unfolded piece by piece on the boardroom table, like a masterful chess game. She outlined the strategic partnerships she had already secured, the legal levers she was prepared to pull, and the alternative leadership team that was both formidable and loyal. Every move was calculated, resonating with the gravity of a woman reclaiming her destiny. The confrontation in the boardroom mirrored the familial dispute that had haunted her, a betrayal that cut deeper than any corporate maneuver, leaving scars on her soul. Yet, as the evidences stacked up, the room became a stage where personal betrayal blurred into professional warfare. Amelia paused, and in that brief moment of silence, her eyes met those of a longtime confidant and colleague who had stood by her side, even when the world turned a blind eye. Their shared look was a bittersweet reminder of lost intimacy and lingering romance, a moment where personal connection and corporate turmoil collided. For a flash, the boardroom transformed into a memory of evenings spent quietly together, the soft murmur of heartfelt confessions echoing in quiet rooms. But those memories were as transient as the fading light of dusk. In the harsh glare of the boardroom, emotion was replaced by determination, and love by the need for justice and vindication. The tension reached its peak when Amelia led the discussion to the moment of public denouncement. With well-documented proof in hand, a dossier of emails, confidential memos, and hidden contracts, she unveiled the full scope of her partner's deceit. The atmosphere, heavy with the weight of betrayal, shifted palpably. One by one, each piece of damning evidence was presented, broadcasting to everyone in the room that trust had been irrevocably broken. "No more secrets," she declared, her voice resonating with a mixture of grief and resolute anger. "Today we stand on the brink of redefining what we believe in, both as a company and as a family bound by common goals. I cannot and will not allow personal greed to undermine everything we have strived to build." The revelation was a catharsis not just for the business, but for her heart, which had silently borne the wounds of a broken trust. The room was alive with murmurs of shock and indignation. Some thought of the future with trepidation, others with relief at the unveiling of the long-hidden truth. Amelia's partner, for his part, could only muster a feeble protest, his attempts to justify his actions drowned by the overwhelming weight of evidence. In these moments he was no longer the charming partner who once shared her dreams and vulnerabilities. He was now stripped of any veneer of reliability, a man exposed to the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. After the initial shock had rippled through the boardroom, Amelia stepped back to collect herself. Internally, she was racked with a cascade of conflicting emotions: the satisfaction of leveling the field, the sorrow of a love that had turned sour, and the loneliness that came with making the hard but necessary decisions. The counter-takeover, after all, was not merely a corporate maneuver, it was a personal battle cry. It signified her commitment to dismantle a web of lies that had invaded every facet of her life. Each revelation was like a scalpel, carving out the remnants of the past to expose the raw truth beneath. In the moments that followed, the board began a chaotic flurry of debate and disbelief. Some aligned with Amelia wholeheartedly, emboldened by her frankness and the undeniable logic of her plan. Others hesitated, their loyalties caught in the gravitational pull of long-standing relationships and the fear of upheaval. Amidst this orchestrated chaos, a senior board member rose to speak, a voice marked by both regret and resolve. "We have reached a watershed moment," he acknowledged, emphasizing that the truth, painful as it might be, was the only path forward. His words, though measured, did little to dissipate the charged atmosphere of the room. Yet in this arena of corporate warfare, where every word seemed to chip away at not only the partners' credibility, but also the history that had once woven them together, another story was quietly unfolding. With a subtle nod, Amelia acknowledged that, while this chapter was one of painful retribution and strategic repositioning, it also held echoes of lost romance. As the confrontation drew to a close, and the board began to consider the next steps, she allowed herself one private moment, a swift, lingering glance exchanged with that same supportive confidant. It was a silent affirmation that amidst all the chaos and heartbreak, there existed a remnant of something tender, something that made the struggle worth bearing. In that almost imperceptible moment, she felt both the weight of her past and the promise of a future unburdened by deceit. The fallout from the public exposure rippled far and wide. Employees who had once harbored doubts now felt the stirrings of a new era, an era where truth was not hidden behind closed doors and backroom deals. Social media and industry insiders buzzed with heated discussions, and the news quickly spread outside the confines of the boardroom. Amelia prepared herself for the inevitable storm of both support and criticism, knowing that while the path she had chosen was fraught with peril, it was the only one that led to genuine liberation. As the meeting transitioned from chaos back to a semblance of order, Amelia took a final stand. She delivered a parting address that was as much a proclamation of personal strength as it was a call to arms for the future of the company. "We have been deceived by those we trusted most," she said, her tone unwavering in its resolve. "But deception, like all storms, passes. What remains is our commitment to integrity and the relentless pursuit of our shared vision. Today, we press forward on a path defined not by the shadows of dishonesty, but by the light of unwavering truth." Each syllable carried the promise of final retribution and the beginning of rebuilding, a twilight between what had been lost and the potential for resurgence. As the chapter drew to a close on that tumultuous day, the boardroom, once a scene of calm order, had transformed into a crucible of change. Personal betrayals and corporate treachery had collided in a spectacle both bitter and necessary. Amelia's strategically woven web of comeback was not an end, but a significant turning point that set the stage for the impending reckoning in both the boardroom and the troubled familial ties that had marred her past. Amid the heavy air of retribution and resolve, one message rang clear: the era of deception was over, and with it, the time for a new, honest struggle had just begun. Chapter 4. Aftermath of Truth. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as employees, investors, and family gathered for a quarterly update. Marissa stepped confidently to the center, hiding the inner turmoil from sleepless nights spent grappling with betrayal. Her calm facade was hard-won, the result of emerging stronger from adversity. As she spoke, the room fell silent. Her voice, steady and determined, laid bare the duplicity she had uncovered: financial mismanagement entwined with personal betrayal. Evidence flashed on the screen, unraveling her partner's manipulations. His once charming demeanor crumbled under the weight of her revelations, leaving him isolated and exposed. Marissa's public confrontation was not about humiliation, but reclaiming her moral victory. Silence transitioned to a liberating internal catharsis for Marissa, transforming the pain of betrayal into newfound strength. Her words shed the remnants of a past defined by deception, revealing that even betrayal could be transformative. In a secluded corridor, Marissa encountered him one last time. There were no speeches, just a charged silence acknowledging their crossroads. Leaning in, she kissed him a bittersweet farewell to the love and trust she once held. This simple gesture encapsulated years of hope and disillusionment, leaving him with the understanding that some wounds should remain unhealed. The fallout from that day rippled beyond the corporate arena, realigning her relationships. Friends and family who had sensed her struggles rallied in support. Conversations shifted from doubt to renewal as Marissa's inner circle found solace in her resolve. The past's sharp edges softened, allowing resilience to emerge. Corporate dynamics also shifted. Board members, intrigued by Marissa's silent strength, moved closer to change. A future where integrity was essential began to take shape, echoing the sentiments of that final kiss, a reminder that letting go could lead to rebirth. In private reflections, Marissa embraced the transformation of recent months. Family ties, once strained, began to mend through shared laughter and hopes for the future. The microcosms of personal life reconfigured into resilience and empathy. The day's climax extended into small interactions, kind words from rivals, cautious handshakes bridging gaps, and a community weaving together after the cascade of truths. Even the media's narrative shifted from scandal to introspection, recognizing Marissa's courageous emergence. As months passed, Marissa's journey became a beacon of authentic transformation. Memories of heartbreak reminded her that facing painful truths allowed her to embrace a future unburdened by pleasing others. The final kiss became a symbol of loss and liberation, a treasured lesson learned. One quiet evening, Marissa looked in the mirror, seeing a gaze of unwavering certainty. The end of an era signaled a meaningful beginning, a path illuminated by hard-earned wisdom. She embraced the reflection of a future self determined to create beauty from chaos and truth from betrayal. The chapter concluded not in despair, but in understanding. Each step since the confrontation was a stride toward personal liberation. The ruins of old affiliations transformed into a mosaic celebrating imperfection and strength. With the last echoes of that kiss lingering like a promise,